All right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist?
Perfect. Perfect.
Is anybody there?
We're all here.
Oh, thank you very much. We will begin this interaction with the entitlement, predictions, and changes. Allow us to begin with the following idea. Understand, though you do create the reality whereby you experience what you call timeline, you do in each and every moment exist, physically only ever exist in the now moment, in the here, in the now. Therefore, any notion of a past is a recreation of that past in the moment and not reliving per se that past by definition. It is merely a recreation, a reconstruction of your perception of a perceived past in the moment. So therefore, it is a present time creation. This is also the case for what you label your perception of the future. For the idea is you always exist in the now, and therefore you can say there is no one future. There is no the future that is etched in steel and unchangeable, unmalleable. The idea is from every given now moment, there are an infinite probable amount of futures. So therefore, you have upon your planet the idea you label prediction. Understand from our perspective, and again, we only share with you our perspectives, that there is no such thing as a prediction of the future. However, there is the idea, within the idea of realities that contain a timeline of certain momentums of energy, certain patterns that seem in that sense to have a particular momentum behind them. And this can be sensed in any given now moment. What you label a prediction of the future is indeed a sensing of the energy in the moment of a momentum, perhaps from the mass consciousness itself, that seems most likely at that moment. And if many factors do not change because there is that momentum and it is most likely, then that particular of the infinitely available probable futures will be the one that you will experience. However, your knowing of the prediction, your knowing of the sensing, expands your consciousness to the point where you can then decide, both individually and collectively, whether or not you prefer to allow that momentum to play out. And indeed, if you do not, it is your option from your particular standpoint to begin to take the actions so that you will not particularly as an individual, experience that idea. So, again, to capsulize, the idea is the knowing of the prediction in and of itself, the mere knowledge of that momentum, the sensing of that momentum can be enough in and of itself to change that momentum, to affect that prediction. There are many ideas within your society from what you call a historical standpoint of many predictions of what you sometimes label upcoming earth changes. From our perspective, these predictions were rendered, sensed, again, historically speaking, at times when the parameters of the societies upon your planet, upon your world, were far different. There was, shall we say, far more oppression. There was far more of the idea whereby individuals would feel trapped in particular realities. So therefore, there was a very accurate sensing during much of your historical history of the idea that particular changes would occur. However, the definition that those changes must occur catastrophically were, shall we say, a product of the time that those predictions were rendered. For so rigid was the society, so rigid was the structure of the society, that the only way that individuals could make any sense out of understanding that there would be great change is by the idea of breaking up the old structure altogether. There was simply no way within the old structure to see any possibility for change. So it was therefore automatically assumed, shall we say, that the only way these changes in consciousness, these changes in society, these changes on a planetary level could occur would be for a breaking up and a shaking down of the old structures. Understand that now things have changed. Therefore, if you wish, you can still buy into this idea, but it is not necessary. And at least now that we have mentioned it, perhaps you can understand that you have a choice. The idea is very simple. Great change there will be. For this is the time of transformation on your planet. However, from our perspective, that transformation is an expansion and at the same time a unitization of individuals and the collective of your planet. There is much talk of the idea of physical pole shifts and the earth tilting on its axis, having many, shall we say, calamities then resulting from this idea, and allow us to say from our sensing, from our particular observations, that although there will be particular electromagnetic shifts, there will be no physical shifts, at least on the earth that we are perceiving you are all on right now. But the idea is that individuals will experience the results of many of these shifts in vastly different ways. And what will determine your particular effect, experience of these changes will be your consciousness, your orientation. If in that sense you would expect the worst, you can create being, shall we say, involved in the worst of what in that sense will happen. But if you understand that changes need not be by trials, by fire, by breaking it up, and can simply be a smooth transition, then you will attract yourself to the circumstances and, where applicable, the places whereby whatever changes occur will not affect you in a negative way. There may be the idea of the ability to perceive others being affected, but shall we say, this occurs less and less as the mass begins to understand your role of your consciousness within these changes. Therefore, you can understand that the transformation can be very smooth, very comfortable. And simply, if you will look at the topography of the political changes upon your planet right now, quite a bit is going on. And as we have also shared in your vernacular, many of the things that you simply never thought you would see in your lifetime are now beginning to occur. You can, if you wish, focus in on what may seem to still be remnant negative aspects of these changes, or you can use these changes as evidence if you decide you wish to be positively oriented that you are getting an effect. You are beginning to see external reflections of your willingness to integrate internally yourself. So therefore, change is one of the only constants in reality. In that sense, you need not force change, for it is simply automatic. When you force something, in a sense, the result is having it seem to stay the same. So there is no effort involved in the allowance of the natural order of things change, though there may be an effort in trying to maintain a particular reality, which again, understand your reality is fluid. So therefore, change will always occur. Change need not be perceived as negative. One of the ideas that allows individuals to experience negative change is the idea of fear itself. For fear itself is saying that you believe that a reality that you do not prefer is most likely. Therefore, understand that in general in your society, we have noticed a particular penchant. You fear fear itself. And this is what paralyzes you. Not the original fear, but the fearing of being afraid itself. That puts you again in what you label limbo. That paralyzes or can seem to paralyze you. Individuals who simply experience the fear and use it in order to trace back to what they must believe to be creating that fear can simply then proceed, as you say, through the fear and then allow themselves to perform whatever actions. But when you freeze up to the notion that you are simply afraid of the fear itself, you do not allow yourself to use that creation. Understand your emotions, as anything else, are your creations. And they are, in a sense, truly neutral creations. You place a particular interpretation upon these emotions, and the interpretation that you place determines the effect you get out. How this can be used in a positive way is to understand that all emotions arise from beliefs. So therefore, if you have a particular emotion that seems to be non-preferential or negative, it allows you to trace back to a non-preferential or negative belief by simply saying, well, this is a neutral emotion that to me feels quite negative. What must I believe to be creating it to have a negative effect? And when you trace back to that belief, you have one. A belief right in your hand that you have that you do not prefer to have. As we have shared, the only way to change any beliefs is to first own that you even have them. So therefore, that is the beginning step. Using it all. So if you feel yourself fearing, first of all, allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to manifest it in its totality. Then reflect. Reflect on what you believe within the circumstances you have created that enable you to create that fear, and look at the belief. Do you wish to keep it or don't you? If you do not, you can choose a new belief, determine the corresponding actions you would have with a new belief, and act that way. And that will immediately reverse the effect of the old belief. For it is the actions that you take, having the beliefs that you have, that create in a physical universe, physical reality. So therefore, if you act from a premise of fear, you get the effect of the fear. If you act from a premise of having utilized the fear to nail down a belief, change that belief, compare how you would have acted with the old belief to how you would act if you truly had the new belief, you will have a new set of actions that will enable you to move with the new belief. And this will allow the idea of change to consistently be perceived as positive. Therefore, you can understand that great change there will be. But that change need not in any way, shape, or form be experienced as catastrophic or cataclysmic. And the more individuals that get a hold of this idea, the more momentum will develop in the mass consciousness, and the overall physical effect on the entire planet can be minimized literally down to nil. Therefore, if in that sense you like these ideas, please feel free to share them. For the more, again, momentum by each individual that is added to the momentum of the mass consciousness, being that you are all within that mass consciousness, the easier it is for individuals who do not think that way to begin to change toward it, for there is some momentum to grab onto to allow the seemingly easy facilitation of the new beliefs. So therefore, again, you need not fear change, but if you do, look at it. Use all your creations. You each create your own version of Earth anyway. And in that sense, you may understand that there are an infinite number of parallel Earths. So therefore, literally, there is not one Earth with one set of occurrences. There are many, many Earths with many overlapping set of occurrences, many overlapping agreements. You are each your own universe. But one of the aspects of this exploration is agreeing with other creators who are also each their own universe to create the idea of commonality. But this commonality is far less common than you might imagine. You take it for granted that you are all quote unquote seeing the same thing. You are not. You are each creating your own version of it. So therefore, in that sense, if you will begin to change your beliefs toward positive expectation for positive change and congregate enough other individuals around you who will do so, you will literally create a bubble, literally create a new earth where those changes need not even occur at all. But from our perception, from our sensing of the bubble that we are within, we can at least share that it appears to us very unlikely that your Earth will tilt off its axis and you will go flying into space. No. However, again, there are the idea of electromagnetic shifts, and these can have varying effects from almost nothing to weather changes and so forth. As you look out at what you perceive to be your mass reality, you can understand now that whereby in your past there pretty much seemed to be a preponderance of negative evidence about what was wrong with the world, a balancing is taking place. And there are, shall we say, more available positive symbols to latch onto. This makes it a bit easier for you in that sense to begin to change your orientation. But it will always be up to you. There will always be 100% evidence out there to prove the negative, and there will be 100% evidence out there to prove the positive. For the idea is that it is not this or that, negative or positive. Truly, in the overall sense, it is both. Which do you choose? And the idea is, because you have created a reality that contains the idea of negativity within it, as you expand in your consciousness, your awareness will expand to that much more of the positive. But at least at the beginning, because of the definition of your reality, you will also become equally aware of more negative. But there is a far difference between being aware and experiencing it. So as you expand and become equally more aware of both, you can choose to only experience yourself personally the positive. And therefore your awareness of the negative will come in the form of other individuals seeming to, in that sense, endure hard times, as you say. So therefore, just because something is to your awareness does not mean in this physical reality you need to experience it. You can go in that sense to your library and read whatever book it is you wish. Happy, ecstatic, funny, joyful, sad, scary, bad. But it is the one that you check out that is your life. But this does not mean you cannot read the other books. So therefore you can understand the distinction between awareness of an idea and choosing to participate with that idea. This gives you back a great amount of your power to choose, to exercise your freedom of choice. And again, as a reminder, you do exist only ever right here, right now. No matter where that here is, where that now is, it's always right here, right now. What is of most assistance to you is to begin to utilize what is in those here and now moments and not confuse the issue by factoring in choices that you cannot act upon in the here and now moment. So one thing that you may find a bit helpful is when you are in a moment and deciding what to do, if there is a choice that you cannot act on in that moment, for the time being, toss it out the window. Do not confuse the issue. By tossing what is not available out the window, you then begin to expand your vision to see what is there. And each moment being holographic, being connected to all other moments, always contains everything you need in order to proceed to be who you are in ecstasy, in joy, most fully. But if you are concentrating on the things you cannot do, you cannot see that idea. You do not allow yourself to truly weigh what is right in front of your face. So therefore, when we say, be here now, we mean it. And although that has become a catchphrase in your New Age terminology, it is basically the crux of the matter. For when you ground yourself into the moment, you begin to live from the moment. All the details, all of them, take care of themselves. For everything in reality is interrelated. But when you do not live in the moment, you cannot see that. And therefore, it becomes a bit confusing. When you do live in the moment, you allow yourself to see the interconnection. You allow yourself to see the synchronicity. You allow yourself to see the incidences occurring at the same time, which will always deliver via the path of least resistance anything you say you desire. Perhaps not always in the timing that you wish, but that is another, shall we say, issue, your trust in timing. Therefore, we feel that this is understood enough for us to proceed to the interaction. If there are, in that sense, any questions or curiosities, extrapolating on this material, please feel free to share. Also understand that we are not speaking your language. We, in that sense, are telepathic beings. We send the intention of our thoughts, and they are translated through the mentality of whatever channel, in that sense, we are communicating through. This allows us, in that sense, again, being telepathic, to not need to learn the language and still be able to communicate, as you say, most fully. However, because there is not always a one-to-one interpretation of the ideas that we share because of the different orientations of our consciousness, from time to time, some ideas may not be clear to certain individuals. We simply request that if that is ever the case within these interactions, simply in that sense, speak up and ask for clarification. For no one is served if they do not understand a particular idea. And from our perspective, there is simply no such thing as an interruption or a stupid question. Therefore, again, feel free to share on whatever level you wish, and also understand, from our perspective, a statement from your part is just as much of a sharing, in fact, a bold representation with conviction of who you are. And the interactions are just that, interactions. We learn, in that sense, you learn. We are all teachers and learners, and we appreciate many of the ideas that you share with us, for it expands our knowledge of just how many more ways God, or what we call all that is, expresses itself. And we understand ourselves as all part of the one, all that is. Therefore, we feel quite close to you, for from our perspectives, you are extensions of us. From your perspective, we are extensions of you. Therefore, for your willingness in this sense to extend yourself in this manner, we thank you and ask you now, how may we be of service to you? Sharing. At this timing, allow us to once again reiterate the idea that predictions are simply sensings of the energy that are available. The knowing of a prediction can change the outcome of the prediction because you are all involved, integrally involved with the manifestation of any momentum. Change is the only constant. Change is, shall we say, the only thing which is constant in all realities. Therefore, change there will be. But your perception of the change and your experience of the change is far more up to you than you have been informed. Now that we have discussed this, perhaps you will entertain the notion that you can begin to use all your creations in a positive way and experience the positive transformation of your planet at this time. We thank you for your willingness to interact with us. We thank you for your willingness to consistently allow for the co-creations of these interactions over the last 2 years of your time. We again remind you that this is a new beginning. Congratulations. You are at the next phase of interacting with our awareness.